everything's a mess. So.
Oh, well, we're not so particular about this, understandably. And thank you for coming on our show with a name like Balls in Your Face Marketing.
Well, you certainly have not been impacted by certain movements across the world yet, but that'll change.
Well, you'd be surprised. In fact, I think I know exactly what you're referring to, and certainly probably actually a very controversial figure on that front, which I believe you're referring to, is a Canadian professor, Jordan Peterson, who's become quite a celebrity in the United States, at least, on certain social movements and so on. So yeah, you're right. I think you're referring to the sort of anti-political, non-politically correct language.
Well,
we put a Z on it. So
I will tell you this. It's funny because I had a great advertising teacher and I went to Ohio University, great school, and he was a former New York ad executive who had created the Good and Plenty ads way back when.
Once upon a time there was an engineer. Choo-choo Charlie was his name, we hear. He had an engine and he sure had fun. He's good and plenty candy to make his train run.
And for a class, I did a golf ball commercial, right? And my slogan was, "These are the balls it takes to win."
Right.
And I got an A. So my pleasure to be on the show.
Wonderful, yeah. And so let me do a quick introduction of yourself to the extent that I know, because this is we're meeting for the very first time. You and I only really connected earlier this week.
That's right.
Through LinkedIn. So your name is Roger Wilkerson. You are the Chief Idea Officer at YGet Arts.
That's true. And YGet Arts is strategy backwards.
There you go. Okay, interesting.
Because we look at strategy from all angles.
See, you're a clever man. I could tell, and that's really what this is what really prompted the whole connection. Was you had posted a little video talking about a brand, and more specifically to
sure.
And to paraphrase it a bit, was that people are not brands, things are brands.
Right.
And I thought it was a cool little post. I thought it was a sort of a provocative story. I don't know. On this show, we try to, we're just trying to help people sort of navigate the digital world. I thought there was a valid point to it, but I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. Maybe I can kind of play sort of devil's advocate, and we can, instead of talking about some of the detailed kind of stuff that we've done on the show, where we open up screens and get into the nitty gritty, maybe take a step back, talk a theory about that, like what is a brand.
So, look, it's not my word. I didn't make it up. The dictionary is very clear about what a brand is. There's, I think it's Webster's that does a score on how popular the word is. Mm-hmm. The word brand itself is under 50% popular. So that's important to think about, that people don't like that word, brand, right? So you're already knocking out half of your mix. And also the original connotation of branding was actually branding of animals. That's how it started, right? Right. And ownership, right? So that's a lot of the reason for the negative connotation of the term, right? It's only in our generation that brand has been attached to, products.
Right.
But if you look at the definition, it's very clear. It has to be a thing or a product, not a person.
Okay. So again, just playing devil's advocate, because I think you're tapping into something, and also I think you're tapping into maybe some behaviors that you're observing of sort of younger generation of marketers, maybe how they're trying to present themselves. I wonder.
Well, what's funny is that I don't think it's just, and look, there's nothing wrong with people that are calling themselves personal branders or talking about personal branding. Mm-hmm. But if they're trying to actually connect with somebody, they're not doing it without those two words. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because then it just becomes that high school popularity game, right? Of who's got the most, who's got the best, who's the coolest, who's the fastest, and what I think, and I don't just see it with younger people, I see it with older people too, right? Mm-hmm. I think what they're really talking about is point of view, right? that you have to have, this is very similar to what happens in stand-up comedy. For a stand-up comedian to break out of rooms and go big, they have to have a specific point of view because the audience connects with that point of view.
Right.
That's that thought process, that thinking idea. That's what makes them popular and escalate up, right? So, you know, somebody like Seinfeld, people will say, well, he's a brand. It's like, no, he's a celebrity.
Michael Jordan, or even, you know, Donald Trump, right? Who kind of, you know, chooses his value based on what he thinks his brand, his name is worth.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've actually had personal interactions with him over a substantial amount of time. His actual original right-hand man was a very good friend of mine. So I had Donald on a bunch of shows back in the 80s in Atlantic City when I was producing WMMR. And
I like talking the big picture.
Even then, Donald knew what he was doing, you know. It's that, you know, it's the thing of running in and yelling fire and then having water to put out the fire. You know, it's the, I'm going to cause a problem and solve it.
Tell me a bit more what you mean by that.
So if you run into a room and you yell fire, right, everybody will naturally run out, right? But if you have a bucket of water and you put it on the fire, you look like the hero, right? But and actually you're the perpetrator. You know, you studied psychology, so yeah. So and actually that's what a lot of marketing is in general, is setting that fire. You know, don't forget, like Apple, Samsung, probably one of the biggest rivalries, right? They were partners originally.
Yeah.
So
really, Apple, Microsoft too.
Absolutely, that's right. That's very true. So I think what there's, look, I have a lot of friends that are personal branding people, right? And I would never comment negatively on any of their posts about personal branding. And if that's what they want to call it, that's what they want to call it. But they will eventually find that long-term it doesn't work, because once we hit a down market, a down cycle, which we will, and whether it's 2019 or 2020, personal branding would be a luxury product. I'm paying for personal branding as a luxury product if I'm an individual proprietor.
Even as a service.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. So once that happens, once that downturn happens, then the market dries up, right?
So how do you feel about, as a service, you see that there's not a big future in that, but for individuals today to consider what is their personal brand, what, if they were to consider themselves in that way, and to start defining that and promoting that, do you have sort of a concern or an issue with that?
No, I don't have a concern or an issue, because what I hear really is I hear them saying, look, this is my message, right? Mm-hmm. This is what I'm trying to say, right? And I would encourage that, right? Yeah. But you don't need to have a personal brand to come on with a message, right?
Right.
Especially on LinkedIn now. I think one of the things about LinkedIn with video, and it's being so new, nobody really knows what it is. It's not even a year old.
That's right.
Right? So, everything is experimental. Nobody really knows what works, what produces results, right? I do my stuff for fun. I don't do it for anything other than that. Yeah. And if it's not fun, I don't do it. So if it's Thursday and I don't feel like doing it, I don't do it.
Then you don't do it. Well, that's it. And this is what, I liked about what I saw you doing. And it's funny because, same thing. I agree exactly with what you're saying, that this is sort of a very experimental time. I see a lot of people using video now, and for sure, to the extent that I've seen some metrics on how people are responding and engaging, it's been very effective. But I do see different ways that people are using it, and when I saw what you were doing, again, it's playful. You've got sometimes a sort of clear, sort of defined thought ahead of time, and this is your message for that particular video. And I think a lot of people are you're giving a perspective, exactly like you were saying. You're giving here's my point of view. You're giving it to the world, for better or worse, like it or hate it. I think go on.
That's right. I mean, no, I think that's really, really important. So I think that that's what everybody should be doing, right? Mm-hmm. So is just put out there what you think. One of the things I like is being based out of Asia most of the year is I have a lot more respect for people in collectivist cultures where going on video and talking is not rewarded within their cultures. It's not rewarded to stand out. I have a lot more respect for that. That's a lot more courage than, somebody like me who was trained as, an actor and did all that stuff to go. It's zero courage for me to go on video.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's funny, like, I mean, I've got a fair degree of sort of performance experience, but to be honest, I was just going on myself was something actually that I was certainly nervous about.
Sure.
And in part also just because, it's finding that line, I think, between, because I see a lot of people, a lot of sort of younger kids doing the sort of fake it till you make it kind of, look at me, I've created this agency that we're raking in 50K per month. And I mean, there's one guy, I don't even remember his name, but I mean, he just sort of, and you know what, power to him, he's found his tribe, but I had to turn him off because it was like every video was like, what up, dudes? I worry about those individuals sort of going out by themselves while they're still kind of finding themselves, while they're still building their experience. Because I've talked a lot about how I think there is this new economy of authenticity. I agree with what you're saying, that I think everybody should be considering doing this because.
Well, you're dead on, and you bring up another big word that is kind of getting annoying too, which is authenticity, right? So if you're talking about authenticity, does that mean that you're not authentic to begin with? Is it a baseline goal that you're trying to set? If you're saying you have to be authentic, aren't you real to begin with? Or are you just trying to create a version of what you think people want to hear, right? To hit a goal. So my thing is I tell people, be yourself online and offline, meaning that, if somebody meets me, I hope they have the same experience as if they're watching my videos and like them or dislike them. Right. Because all I can do, or you can do, or anybody can do is just put themselves out there. Right. And the bottom line is some people are going to like you. Some people are going to hate you. But most are going to be neutral. The most are going to be in the middle, and they're going to listen to you sometimes, watch and pay, and maybe they interact with you, maybe they don't.
Right.
And then you don't get hung up in that metrics nonsense that everybody's getting hung up on.
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about authenticity, I actually just sort of mean it that I think there's a new opportunity for it. So I would say this, that I think we've always sort of put on different hats based on the context that we're in, right? We go to a party and you behave a certain way, you behave with your family a certain way. And when we would go to work, we would also behave. There was this sort of professional sort of rules of the game, how one conducted themselves and how a business presented itself. And so I think when I talk about, hey, there's this new economy, it's the fact that through the internet now you can find your tribe. You can actually connect to a much broader audience. You're able to be who you genuinely are all the time. And I think it's and I think that's the same thing of what you're saying is yourself online and offline. That's the opportunity of today. And what I would say this too is this is my advice to people, not just, for young entrepreneurs, even people who are working, because I think what you were saying earlier about, the economy is changing. People might be losing their jobs. And it'll likely, I would say probably the middle class first, all those analysts and stuff like that. So I think it's a good time for people to start really sort of digging in deep into, well, what are my core strengths? What are my passions? What are the things when I'm working on this, I'm in flow and I'm actually, like, time is passing, I'm happy doing that. Because once you've identified that, then I think it goes back to, you can start to kind of brand that, say, here's who I am, here's my perspective, this is my style, this is what I'm good at. And I think there's a big advantage in getting out of the gate now and just putting it out there.
That's right. And the one good thing about that 20-year-olds have access to now is this, right? So I mean, I would encourage them to go on and do whatever, right? And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, that's okay too. It's not, in the scheme of things, if you take the lifespan of a LinkedIn video, for example, it's going to cycle out in about 3 to 5 days anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to get its most viewership in those 3 to 5 days. And then it's going to kind of, it's not like YouTube where it's going to be there forever and you're going to have to deal with trolls and, you know,
yeah.
or Twitter or any of that stuff. So this is a very a supportive environment right now on LinkedIn, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, and like, I love seeing first videos and jumping on. I love if there's some way to do something like this, it's fun, you know, whatever.
Yeah. And that's why I certainly like this, because I just, this format, exactly like I said, as much as I feel, and that's what the whole sort of point of the show, it was the sort of,
right,
myself and 2 other partners who all kind of, you know, had some experience and wanted to exactly just sort of try to help people and hopefully give people just maybe a little actionable or something that they can take away that day and maybe, you know, make their lives better or their businesses better. And certainly I find that this format of just, you know, having a conversation with people,
right,
and then sharing that, because, you know, sometimes that goes somewhere, you never know where it goes, but if it does,
right,
you can bring people along for the journey.
Yeah.
And you know, hopefully there's value in that, and who knows where it all, you know, how it all.
Well, I think what you're hitting on the head with the challenge for anybody, right, is what are you trying to do in the video, right? What are you trying to do in the post? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to sell yourself? Are you trying to sell your company? Are you trying to land a job? Are you just experimenting? What is it? You got to know that. That becomes your foundation, right? That becomes your center. And then after that, it's just play around with it, right?
Yeah, no, bang on.
You hope that everybody finds what they can do to make a living. Right. And the challenge for most of these people are their businesses are not big in nature, right? So 10 to 20 clients and they're making a good living, you know? And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. Absolutely. I think, and this is why, again, I say that, you know, I think I encourage people to figure out what they're passionate about. And even if they've got a job and they're, you know, then stay in that. If you're happy with that, keep on doing that. Consider what you would do is take your hobby and try to make it into a bit of a side hustle, because
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
Why not? First of all, I mean, there's just the opportunity to do it, and you never know exactly. Like it doesn't hurt to you know, create that sort of insurance and create those options and find your audience now.
Right,
the opportunities there.
That's right. I love all Canadians, always have. Because I grew up in Ohio, so I used to go to Toronto all the time. So I love Canadians. So it was great to meet you. And maybe we should give them a takeaway if you want. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So
I love that.
my takeaway would be, listen, like, look, if you have a question about what you're trying to do with your business, just send me a direct message. I'll be glad to, you know, give you a free look at what's going on. We do that all day long for people. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, I appreciate you offering that out to people and for coming on and spending some time and sharing your thoughts. And yeah, you know, maybe we'll get you back on another time.
Sounds great. Anytime.
I've got big